Beowulf, Prologue. Hear me, we've heard of Danish heroes, ancient kings, and the glory they cut for themselves swinging mighty swords. How Scyld made slaves of soldiers from every land, crowds of captives he'd beaten into terror. He traveled to Denmark alone, an abandoned child, but changed his own fate, lived to be rich and much honored. He ruled lands on all sides, wherever the sea would take them his soldiers sailed, returned with tribute and obedience. There was a brave king, and he gave them more than his glory, conceived a son for the Danes, a new leader, allowed them by the grace of God. They had lived, before his coming, kingless and miserable. Now the Lord of all life, ruler of glory, blessed them with a prince, Beowulf, whose power and fame soon spread through the world. Scyld's strong son was the glory of Denmark. His father's warriors were wound round his heart with golden rings, bound to their prince by his father's treasure. So young men build the future, wisely open-handed in peace, protected in war. So warriors earn their fame, and wealth is shaped with a sword. When his time was come, the old king died, still strong, but called to the Lord's hands. His comrades carried him down to the shore, bore him as their leader had asked, their lord and companion, while words could move on his tongue. Scyld's reign had been long, he'd ruled them well. There in the harbor was a ring-proud fighting ship, its timbers icy, waiting, and there they brought the beloved body of their ring-giving lord, and laid him near the mast. Next to that noble corpse they heaped up treasures, jeweled helmets, hooked swords, and coats of mail, armor carried from the ends of the earth. No ship had ever sailed so brightly fitted, no king set forth more deeply mourned. Forced to set him adrift, floating as far as the tide might run, they refused to give him less from their hoards of gold than those who'd shipped him away, an orphan and a beggar, to cross the waves alone. High up over his head they flew his shining banner, then sadly let the water pull at the ship, watched it slowly sliding to where neither rulers nor heroes nor anyone can say whose hands opened to take that motionless cargo. Part 1. Then Beowulf was king in the Danish castle, Scyld's son ruling as long as his father, and as loved a famous lord of men. And he in turn gave his people a son, the great Halfdane, a fierce fighter, who led the Danes to the end of his long life and left them 4 children, 3 princes to guide them in battle, Hergar, Hrothgar, and Helga the Good, and 1 daughter, Urs, who was given to Onela, king of the Swedes, and became his wife and their queen. Then Hrothgar, taking the throne, led the Danes to such glory that comrades and kinsmen swore by his sword, and young men swelled his armies, and he thought of greatness and resolved to build a hall that would hold his mighty band and reach higher toward heaven than anything that had ever been known to the sons of men. And in that hall he'd divide the spoils of their victories, to the old and young what they'd earned in battle, but leaving the common pastures untouched and taking no lives. The work was ordered, the timbers tied and shaped by the host that Hrothgar ruled. It was quickly ready, the most beautiful of dwellings built as he'd wanted. And then he whose words was obeyed all over the earth named it Heorot. His boast came true, he commanded a banquet, opened out his treasure-full hands. That towering place, gabled and huge, stood waiting for time to pass, for war to begin, for flames to leap as high as the feud that would light them, and for Heorot to burn. A powerful monster, living down in the darkness, growled in pain, impatient as day after day the music rang loud in that hall, the harp's rejoicing call and the poet's clear song, sung of the ancient beginnings of us all, recalling the Almighty making the earth, shaping these beautiful plains marked off by oceans, then proudly setting the sun and moon to glow across the land and light it. The corners of the earth were made lovely with trees and leaves, made quick with life, with each of the nations who now move on its face. And then as now warriors sang of their pleasure, so Hrothgar's men lived happy in his hall, till the monster stirred, that demon, that fiend, Grendel, who haunted the moors, the wild marshes, and made his home in a hell, not hell, but earth. He was spawned in that slime conceived by the pair of those monsters born of Cain, murderous creatures banished by God, punished forever for the crime of Abel's death. The Almighty drove those demons out, and their exile was bitter. Shut away from men, They split into 1,000 forms of evil, spirits and fiends, goblins, monsters, giants, and have brewed forever, opposing the Lord's will, and again defeated. Chapter 2. Then, when darkness had dropped, Grendel went up to Heorot, wondering what the warriors would do in that hall when their drinking was done. He found them sprawled in sleep, suspecting nothing, their dreams undisturbed. The monster's thoughts were as quick as his greed or his claws, and there in the silence snatched up 30 men, smashed them, unknowing in their beds, and ran out with their bodies. The blood dripping behind him back to his lair, delighted with his night's slaughter. At daybreak, when the sun's first light, they saw how well he had worked, and in that grey morning broke their long feast with tears and laments for the dead. Hrothgar, their lord, sat joyless in Heorot, a mighty prince mourning the fate of his lost friends and companions, knowing by its tracks that some demon had torn his followers apart. He wept, fearing the beginning might not be the end, and that night Grendel came again, so set on murder that no crime could ever be enough. No savage assault quenched his lust for evil. Then each warrior tried to escape him, searched for rest in different beds, as far from Heorot as they could find. Seeing how Grendel hunted when they slept, distance was safety. The only survivors were those who fled. Hate had triumphed. So Grendel ruled, fought with the righteous, won against many, and won. So Heorot stood empty, and stayed deserted for years. 12 winters of grief for Hrothgar, king of the Danes. Sorrow heaped at his door by hell-forged hands. His misery leapt the seas, was told and sung in all men's ears. How Grendel's hatred began, how the monster relished his savage war on the Danes, keeping the bloody feud alive, seeking no peace, offering no truce, accepting no settlement, no price in gold or land, and paying the living for one crime only with another. No one waited for reparation from his plundering claws. That shadow of death hunted in the darkness, stalked Hrothgar's warriors, old and young, lying and waiting, hidden in the mist, invisibly following them from the edge of the marsh, always there, unseen. So mankind's enemy continued his crimes, killing as often as he could, coming alone, bloodthirsty and horrible. Though he lived in Heorot, when the night hid him, he never dared to touch King Hrothgar's glorious throne, protected by God, whose love Grendel could not know. But Hrothgar's heart was bent. The best and most noble of his council debated remedies, sat in secret sessions, talking of terror and wondering what the bravest of warriors could do. And sometimes they sacrificed to the old stone gods, made heathen vows, hoping for hell's support, the devil's guidance in driving their affliction off. That was their way, and the heathen's only hope. Hell always in their hearts, knowing neither God nor his passing as he walks through our world, the Lord of heaven and earth. Their ears could not hear his praise nor know his glory. Let them beware. Those who are thrust into danger, clutched at by terrible, yet can carry no solace in their hearts, cannot hope to be better. Hail to those who will rise to God, drop off their dead bodies, and seek our Father's peace. Part 3. So the living sorrow of Healfdene's son simmered, bitter and fresh, and no wisdom or strength could break it. That agony hung on king and people alike, harsh and unending, violent and cruel, and evil. In his far-off home, Beowulf, Hygelac's follower and the strongest of the Geats, greater and stronger than anyone anywhere in this world, heard how Grendel filled knights with horror and quickly commanded a boat fitted out, proclaiming that he'd go to that famous king, would sail across the sea to Hrothgar. Now, when help was needed, none of the wise ones regretted his going, much as he was loved by the Geats. The omens were good, and they urged the adventure on. So Beowulf chose the mightiest men he could find, the bravest and best of the Geats, 14 in all, and led them down to their boat. He knew the sea would point the prow straight to the distant Danish shore. Then they sailed, set their ship out on the waves under the cliffs. Ready for what came, they wound through the currents, the seas beating at the sand, and were borne in the lap of their shining ship, lined with gleaming armor, going safely in the oak-hard boat to where their hearts took them. The wind hurried them over the waves. The ship foamed through the sea like a bird until, in the time they had known it would take, standing in the round curled prow, they could see sparkling hills, high and green, jutting up over the shore, and rejoicing in those rock-steep cliffs, they quietly ended their voyage. Jumping to the ground, the Geats pushed their boat to the sand and tied it in place, mail shirts and armor rattling as they swiftly moored their ship. And then they gave thanks to God for their easy crossing. High on a wall, a Danish watcher patrolling along the cliffs saw the travelers crossing to the shore, their shields raised and shining. He came riding down, Hrothgar's lieutenant, spurring his horse, needing to know why they'd landed, these men in armor. Shaking his heavy spear in their faces, he spoke. "Whose soldiers are you? You who've been carried in your deep-keeled ship across the sea road to this country of mine? Listen! I've stood on these cliffs longer than you know, keeping our coast free of pirates, raiders sneaking ashore from their ships, seeking our lives and our gold. None have ever come more openly, and yet you've offered no password, no sign from my prince, no permission for my people for your landing. Here, nor have I ever seen, out of all the men on earth, one greater than has come with you. No commoner carries such weapons unless his appearance and his beauty are both lies. You! Tell me your name, and your father's. No spies come further onto Danish soil than you've come already. Strangers from wherever it was you sailed, tell it, and tell it quickly. The quicker the better, I say, for us all. Speak, say exactly who you are, and from where, and why." Part 4. Their leader answered him, Beowulf unlocking words from deep in his breast.
"We are Geats, men who follow Hygelac. My father was a famous soldier, known far and wide as a leader of men. His name was Ecgtheow. His life lasted many winters. Wise men all over the earth surely remember him still. And we have come seeking your prince, Healfdene's son, protector of this people. Only in friendship instruct us, watchmen. Help us with your words. Our errand is a great one. Our business with the glorious king of Danes is no secret. There's nothing dark or hidden in our coming. You know that our country is cursed with some strange, vicious creature that hunts only at night and that no one has seen. It's said, watchman, that he has slaughtered your people, brought terror to darkness. Perhaps Hrothgar can hunt here in my heart for some way to drive this devil out, if anything will ever end this evil afflicting your wise and famous lord. Here can cool his burning sorrow, or else he may see his suffering go on forever, for as long as Heorot towers on your high hills."
The mounted officer answered him bluntly, the brave watchman. A soldier should know the difference between words and deeds, and keep the knowledge clear in his brain. I believe your words, I trust in your friendship. Go forward, weapons and armor and all, on into Denmark. I'll guide you myself, and my men will guard your ship. Keep it safe here on our shores. Your fresh-tarred boat, watch it well, until that curving prow carries across the sea to Geatland a chosen warrior who bravely does battle with the creature haunting our people, who survives that horror unhurt, and goes home bearing our love. Then they moved on. Their boat lay moored, tied tight to its anchor. Glittering at the top of their golden helmets, wild boar heads gleamed. Shining decorations, swinging as they marched, erect like guards, like sentinels, as though ready to fight. They marched, Beowulf and his men and their guide, until they could see the gables of Heorot, covered with hammered gold and glowing in the sun, the most famous of all dwellings. Towering majestic, its glittering roofs visible far across the land. Their guide reined in his horse, pointing to that hall, built by Hrothgar for the best and bravest of his men. The path was plain. They could see their way, and then he spoke. "Now I must leave you. May the Lord our God protect your coming and going. The sea is my job, keeping these coasts free of invaders, bands of pirates. I must go back." Part 5. The path he'd shown them was paved, cobbled like a Roman road. They arrived with their mail shirts, glittering silver shining links clanking an iron song as they came. Sea-weary still, they set their broad, battle-hardened shields in rows along the wall, then stretched themselves on Heorot's benches. Their armor rang, their ashwood spears stood in a line. Grey-tipped and straight, the Geats' war-gear were honored weapons. A Danish warrior asked who they were, their names, and their fathers.
"Where have you carried these gold-carved shields from, these silvery shirts and helmets, and those spears set out in long lines? I am Hrothgar's herald and captain. Strangers have come here before, but never so freely, so bold. and you come too proudly to be exiles. Not poverty, but your heart's high courage has brought you to Hrothgar."
He was answered by a famous soldier, the Geats' proud prince.
"We follow Higelac, break bread at his side. I am Beowulf. My errand is for Healfdane's great son to heir, your glorious lord. If he chooses to receive us, we will greet him, salute the chief of the Danes, and speak out our message."
Wulfgar replied, a prince born to the Swedes, famous for both strength and wisdom.
"Our warm-hearted lord will be told of your coming. I shall tell our king, our giver of bright rings, and hurry back with his word, and speak it here, however he answers your request."
He went quickly to where Hrothgar sat, grey and old, in the middle of his men, and knowing the custom of that court, walked straight to the king's great chair, stood waiting to be heard, then spoke.
"These are the Geats who have come sailing the open ocean to our land, came far over the high waves, led by a warrior called Beowulf. They wait on your word, bring messages for your ears alone. My lord, grant them a gracious answer. See them, and hear what they've come for. Their weapons and armor are nobly worked. These men are no beggars. And Beowulf, their prince, who showed them the way of our shores, is a mighty warrior, powerful and wise."
Part 6. The Danes' high prince and protector answered, "I knew Beowulf as a boy. His father was Ecgtho, who was given Hrethel's one daughter, Hrethel, Higlac's father. Now Ecgtho's brave son is here, come visiting a friendly king, and I've heard that when seamen came, bringing their gifts and presents to the Geats, they wrestled and ran together, and Higlac's young prince showed them a mighty battle grip, hands that moved with 30 men's strength, and courage to match. Our Holy Father has sent him as a sign of his grace, a mark of his favour, to help us defeat Grendel, and end that terror. I shall greet him with treasures, gifts to reward his courage in coming to us. Quickly, order them all to come to me, together, Beowulf and his band of Geats, and tell them, too, how welcome we will make them." Then Wulfgar went to the door and addressed the waiting seafarers with soldiers' words.
"My lord, the great king of the Danes, commands me to tell you that he knows of your noble birth, and that having come to him from over the open sea, you have come bravely and are welcome. Now go to him as you are, in your armor and helmets, but leave your battle shields here, and your spears. Let them lie waiting for the promises your words may make."
Beowulf arose with his men around him, ordering a few to remain with their weapons, leading the others quickly along under Heorot's steep roof in Hrothgar's presence. Standing on that prince's own hearth, helmeted, the silvery metal of his mail shirt gleaming with a smith's high art, he greeted the Danes' great lord.
"Hail, Hrothgar! Higelac is my cousin and my king. The days of my youth have been filled with glory. Now, Grendel's name has echoed in our land. Sailors have brought us stories of Heorot, the best of all mead halls, deserted and useless when the moon hangs in the skies and the sun had lit. Light and life fleeing together. My people have said, the wisest, most knowing and best of them, that my duty was to go to the Danes' great king. They have seen my strength for themselves, have watched me rise from the darkness of war, dripping with my enemy's blood. I drove 5 great giants into chains, chased all of that race from the earth. I swam in the blackness of night, hunting monsters out of the ocean and killing them one by one. Death was my errand, and in the fate they had errand. Now Grendel and I are called together, and I've come. Grant me then, Lord and Protector of this noble place, a single request. I have come so far, O shelterer of warriors, and your people's loved friend, that this is one favor you shall not refuse me, that I, alone, with the help of my men, may purge all evil from this hall. I've heard, too, that the monster's scorn of men is so great that he needs no weapons and fears none. Nor will I. My lord Higelac might think less of me if I let my sword go where my feet were afraid to, if I had hid behind some broad linden shield. My hands alone shall fight for me, struggle for life against the monster. God must decide who will be given to death's cold grip. Grendel's plan, I think, will be what it has been before, to invade this hall and gorge his belly with our bodies. If he can. And I think, if my time will have come, there'll be nothing to mourn over, no corpse to prepare for its grave. Grendel will carry our bloody flesh to the moors, crunch on our bones, and smear torn scraps of our skin to the walls of his den. No, I expect no Danes will fret about sewing our shrouds if he wins. And if death does take me, send the hammered mail of my armor to Higelac, return the inheritance I had from Hrethel, and he from Wayland. Fate will unwind as it must.